The crystal chandeliers cast fractured light across the polished marble, turning the grand crystal ballroom into a cathedral of wealth. Nathan Brooks stood alone in the silence, adjusting his platinum cufflinks for the third time. Tomorrow he would marry Sophia Whitmore. Tomorrow everything would be perfect. The air smelled of white roses and furniture polish. 18 hours. That's all the freedom he had left. He should have been at his bachelor party. Instead, his Italian leather shoes echoed through the empty space like a countdown. The coordinator had assured him the wine stain near the altar would be gone by morning. The cleaning crew was handling it. Then he heard crying. Soft, desperate sobs from behind a marble pillar. Nathan moved toward the sound, his heart hammering for reasons he couldn't name. When he rounded the column, the world stopped. A woman knelt on the floor, scrubbing frantically at red wine that had seeped between the marble tiles. Auburn hair pulled back in a ponytail. Blue uniform with city clean services stitched across the back. Her shoulders shook as she worked, tears falling onto the stain she was trying to erase. Emma. The name tore from his throat like a wound reopening. She froze. The scrub brush clattered to the floor. Slowly, impossibly, she turned around. Green eyes, the same green eyes that had haunted 12 years of his life. Emma Clare, his first love, the girl who had vanished without explanation when they were both 20, leaving only a note and questions that never stopped screaming. Nathan, her voice barely existed. She scrambled to her feet, hands trembling. I didn't know you were still here. They stood across an ocean of marble and time. Nathan in a suit worth more than most people earned in a year. Emma in a uniform that didn't belong to her. What are you doing here? The question sounded stupid even as he asked it. But what he really meant was why. Why are you on your knees scrubbing the floor where I'm marrying someone else? I work for the cleaning company that services this venue. Her voice steadied, but he heard the crack beneath. I saw your name on the work order today. Nathan stepped closer. She was still beautiful, more beautiful, but there were lines around her eyes that spoke of survival. Her hands were rough, calloused in ways they had never been when she used to touch his face. Emma, where have you been? Why did you leave? I looked everywhere. Her eyes flashed with something between grief and rage. Did you really? Because from where I stand, it looks like you did just fine without me. The words hit like fists. 12 years of buried questions rose in his chest, choking him. You left me a note, he said quietly. You said you needed space, that we wanted different things. You told me not to follow you. And you didn't. Her voice cracked. You didn't even try. I respected your wishes. That's what you wanted. What I wanted? Emma laughed, bitter and broken. She bent to gather her supplies. Nathan, I was 20 years old and terrified. I needed you to fight for me. It meant everything to me. Nathan reached out, desperate. Emma, you were everything. She straightened, meeting his eyes with a look that sliced through him. Then why are you marrying someone else tomorrow? The question hung between them like a blade. Nathan opened his mouth, closed it. What could he possibly say that wouldn't destroy what they'd once been? Tell me what really happened, he said instead, moving closer despite the warning in her eyes. I never understood why you left. Emma set down the bucket. For just a moment, the walls cracked, and he saw the girl who had loved him completely. My father got sick. Lung cancer. Her voice was steady, but her hands trembled. We had no insurance. No money for treatment. He needed surgery that cost more than my family had ever seen. Nathan's stomach dropped. Emma's father had been like a second parent to him. Sunday dinners that tasted better than anything money could buy. Warmth in a modest home. I tried to tell you, Emma continued. But you were so focused on your internship at Goldman Sachs. You talked constantly about important people, networking events, opportunities. You were building your future, and I was watching mine collapse. You could have told me anyway. I would have helped. With what money? You were living on ramen and dreams just like me. Her laugh was hollow. Besides, your new colleagues made it clear I didn't fit into your world. Nathan remembered the subtle comments, the dismissive looks, Emma's background, her father's blue-collar job, her lack of connections. He had brushed it off then. So what did you do? He asked, dreading the answer. Emma took a breath. When she spoke, Nathan's world shattered. Richard Whitmore offered to pay for my father's treatment. The name crashed through him like thunder. Richard Whitmore, Sophia's father, his mentor, His future father-in-law, the man who had guided his entire career. He knew about us. Nathan's voice came out strangled. He knew everything. Emma's composure finally broke. He said you had potential, but that I was holding you back. He offered to pay for my father's surgery and all his care, but only if I disappeared from your life completely. The ballroom tilted. He said if I really loved you, I would give you the chance to reach your full potential. Nathan sank into a chair meant for tomorrow's guests. His entire life had been orchestrated, manipulated, built on a lie. I was young and desperate, Emma whispered. My father was dying. I thought I was doing the right thing for both of us. Your father, Nathan managed. Did he survive? Yes, the surgery worked. He lived 8 more years. Good years. Fresh tears rolled down her face. He died 3 years ago. Proud and grateful. Nathan covered his face. Emma, I'm so sorry. If I had known, I would have... You would have what? Sacrificed your career for me? Given up everything? She shook her head. Richard Whitmore was right about one thing. You did have incredible potential. Look at what you've built. You're exactly where you always dreamed of being. But not with who I dreamed of being there with. The words escaped before he could stop them. Raw, honest, devastating. Emma stared at him. The walls around her heart cracked wider. I should go, she said finally. You have a wedding tomorrow. Wait. Nathan stood, desperate. There's so much more I need to understand. There's nothing more to say. We made our choices 12 years ago. She paused at the ballroom entrance, silhouetted against the dim hallway light. Actually, there is one more thing you should know. Nathan held his breath. The reason I'm here tonight, cleaning this ballroom. Emma's voice dropped to a whisper. Richard Whitmore specifically requested me for this job. He wanted to make sure I saw exactly what I gave up. The door closed behind her with a sound like a coffin lid. Nathan stood alone in the ballroom, surrounded by flowers and lies, as his wedding day approached like an execution. Nathan didn't sleep. He sat in his penthouse overlooking Central Park, watching the city lights blur into dawn, Emma's words echoing like a curse. Richard Whitmore specifically requested me for this job. At 7 a.m, Nathan stood outside the Whitmore estate in Greenwich. He hadn't called ahead, hadn't warned anyone. He simply appeared at the door where he'd been welcomed as family for the past decade. Richard answered in a silk robe, coffee in hand. For a moment, his mask of warmth slipped, revealing something cold beneath. Nathan, isn't it bad luck to see the bride before the wedding? His smile didn't reach his eyes. Sophia's still sleeping. I'm not here for Sophia. Nathan pushed past him into the marble foyer. I'm here about Emma Clare. Richard's expression barely changed, but Nathan caught the flicker. Calculation. Assessment. That's ancient history, son. Why would you bring up some girl from college on your wedding day? Because she's not ancient history. Nathan's voice was ice. She was at the venue last night, cleaning the floors. You made sure of that. Richard set down his coffee with deliberate care. When he spoke, his voice carried the weight of a man used to controlling rooms, lives, destinies. Let's talk in my study. The study smelled of leather and cigars. Dark wood panels absorbed the morning light. Richard closed the door and poured himself a scotch despite the hour. You want to know about Emma Clare? He didn't offer Nathan a drink. Fine, yes, I paid for her father's medical treatment. Yes, I asked her to step away from your life. And yes, I arranged for her to work your wedding. Nathan's hands clenched into fists. Why? Because you were brilliant and broken, Nathan. That girl had you convinced you were going to change the world from some nonprofit job making $40,000 a year. Richard swirled his scotch. You had the intelligence, the drive, the hunger, but you were aiming at the wrong targets. She loved me. She limited you. Richard's voice hardened. Love makes men weak. It makes them settle. I saw that fire in you. The same fire I had at your age before I let sentiment cloud my judgment. I wasn't going to watch you waste it. So you bought her off. I saved her father's life and gave you the chance to become who you are today. Richard moved closer. Brooks Financial. $12 billion in assets. You're about to marry into one of the most powerful families on the East Coast. You have everything, Nathan. Everything I built for you. Built for me or built for yourself? The question hung between them like a drawn weapon. Richard's expression shifted, revealing something Nathan had never seen before. Not anger, pride. You're finally asking the right questions. He smiled, cold and satisfied. You want the truth? Here it is. I never had a son. When you came to Goldman, green and hungry and brilliant, I saw an opportunity. Mold you, shape you, give you everything you needed to build an empire. Then marry you to my daughter and watch that empire grow under the Whitmore name. Nathan felt sick. Sophia, does she know? Sophia knows what she needs to know. That you're ambitious, stable, and appropriate. Richard finished his scotch. She's not in love with you any more than you're in love with her. But she understands the value of a strategic partnership. Unlike some people, Emma wasn't a strategic partnership. She was real. Real doesn't build dynasties, Nathan. Richard's voice dropped to something almost gentle, which made it more sinister. You think I don't know what it's like to give up someone you care about for power? I do. The difference is, I don't regret it. Nathan stared at the man who had shaped his entire adult life, mentored him, guided him. Destroyed him. I'm calling off the wedding. Richard laughed. Actually laughed. No, you're not. Watch me. Nathan, think carefully. Richard's voice turned to steel. You call off this wedding and I will destroy you. Every door I opened, I will close. Every contact, every investor, every board seat. I will personally ensure that Brooks Financial collapses within 6 months. I will ruin you so completely that you'll be lucky to get a job managing a regional bank branch in Nebraska. I don't care. Really? Richard moved to his desk, pulling out a folder. Because there are 347 employees at Brooks Financial. People with families, mortgages, children in college. Their livelihoods depend on you. Are you prepared to destroy their lives for a cleaning woman you haven't seen in 12 years? Nathan took the folder. Inside were dossiers. Photos of his employees, their families, their stories. That's what love costs, Nathan. It's not just your future you're gambling with. The door opened. Sophia stood in the doorway in a white silk robe, her face carefully composed. I heard voices, she said quietly. Nathan looked at her. Really looked at her. She was beautiful, intelligent, everything his father-in-law had said. And there was nothing in her eyes. No surprise, no hurt. She had known all along. Did you know about Emma? He asked. Sophia glanced at her father, then back to Nathan. When she spoke, her voice was measured, practiced. I knew my father had cleared obstacles from your past. I didn't ask for details. She moved into the room. Nathan, we have an understanding. A partnership. I'm not asking you to love me. I'm asking you to be practical. Practical. We both get what we want. Security, status, the freedom to build something that matters. Sophia's voice softened slightly. I'm not the enemy here. I'm offering you a solution. Nathan looked between them. Father and daughter. Architects of his entire life. And if I walk away, then you lose everything, Richard said simply. Your company, your reputation, your employees' futures. All of it. For what? A woman who's been scrubbing floors for a living? Nathan's phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. I quit the cleaning job. I can't do this anymore. I'm sorry I wasn't stronger 12 years ago. I'm sorry I wasn't stronger last night. But I'm done letting fear control my life. Whatever you decide tomorrow, know that I loved you. Really loved you. That was real, even if nothing else was. Goodbye, Nathan. Below the message was an address in Brooklyn. Nathan looked up at Richard and Sophia. At the study filled with the trappings of power, at the folder in his hands containing the lives of hundreds of people. The wedding starts at 6, Sophia said quietly. Whatever you decide, decide soon. Nathan walked to the door, stopped, turned back. Tell me one thing, Richard. Was any of it real? The mentorship? The advice? Did you ever actually care about me? Or was I always just a tool? Richard met his eyes without flinching. Does it matter? Look at what you became. Nathan left the Whitmore estate with the morning sun burning his eyes, and 12 hours until his wedding. In his car, he stared at Emma's address. Brooklyn, 45 minutes away. He started the engine. The building was old brick, paint peeling like sunburned skin. Nathan's Mercedes looked obscene parked on the street, drawing stares from neighbors who knew what didn't belong. 3rd floor. No elevator. His dress shoes echoed on stairs that smelled of cooking grease and worn wood. The walls were thin enough to hear televisions, arguments, a baby crying. Emma's apartment was 3C. Nathan stood outside her door for a full minute before knocking. His hand trembled. She answered in jeans and a faded college sweatshirt. No makeup, hair loose around her shoulders. She looked more like the girl he'd loved than she had last night in that uniform. You came. Her voice was flat, unsurprised, like she'd expected him and dreaded it in equal measure. You texted me your address. I texted you goodbye. They stared at each other across the threshold. Emma didn't invite him in. Nathan didn't ask permission. He simply stepped forward and she stepped back, and suddenly he was in her world. The apartment was small. One room serving as bedroom and living space. A kitchenette barely big enough for one person. A bathroom he could see through a half-open door. But it was clean, painfully clean. Books on improvised shelves made from cinder blocks and wood planks. A small table with 2 mismatched chairs. Sunlight streaming through a window that looked out at another brick wall. This was where Emma Clare lived. While he'd been building empires and penthouses, she'd been here. Why did you come, Nathan? Emma closed the door, leaning against it like she needed the support. What do you want from me? I went to see Richard Whitmore this morning. Something flickered across her face. Fear, maybe, or recognition, and he admitted everything. The manipulation, the planning. He's been orchestrating my life for 12 years. Nathan moved deeper into the tiny apartment. He said if I call off the wedding, he'll destroy me. My company. My employees. Then don't call it off. Emma's voice was hard. You came all this way to tell me you're going through with it? You could have texted. Is that what you want? For me to marry Sophia? What I want doesn't matter anymore. Emma pushed off from the door. We're not 20 years old, Nathan. We don't get to just pick up where we left off because we still have feelings. The world doesn't work that way. I'm in love with you. The words fell like stones into water. Emma froze, her back to him. Don't. I never stopped. Not in 12 years. Not for a single day. Nathan's voice cracked. Every woman I dated, I compared to you. Every success felt empty because you weren't there. I convinced myself I'd moved on. That what we had was just youthful infatuation. But seeing you last night... Stop. Emma turned, and there were tears on her face. You don't get to do this. You don't get to show up here and say these things when you're getting married in 9 hours. Then tell me you don't feel it too. Tell me last night meant nothing. Emma's composure shattered. Of course it meant something. Seeing you standing there in that ballroom, about to marry someone else, it felt like dying all over again. But we don't always get what we want, Nathan. Sometimes we have to live with the consequences of our choices. Those weren't our choices. They were Richard's. I still made them. Emma's voice rose. I took his money. I left you that note. I disappeared. Yes, I was scared and desperate, but I still chose to walk away instead of fighting. I'm not some innocent victim in this story. Nathan stepped closer. Neither am I. I let my colleagues make me feel like you weren't good enough. I got so caught up in my career that I didn't see you drowning. I failed you before Richard even got involved. So what do we do with that? Emma wiped at her tears. How do we fix 12 years of mistakes? I don't know. Nathan reached out, hesitating before touching her face. She didn't pull away. But I know I can't marry Sophia. Not after last night. Not after this. Emma closed her eyes, leaning into his touch like someone starving. Your employees. Richard wasn't bluffing, Nathan. He will destroy everything you've built. Then I'll build something else. With what? He'll blacklist you everywhere that matters. Emma opened her eyes. I've been poor, Nathan. Really poor? It's not romantic. It's terrifying and exhausting, and it breaks you in ways you don't come back from. I can't let you throw away everything for me. You're not letting me do anything. I'm choosing. No. Emma pulled away from his touch. I won't be the reason you lose everything. Not again, Nathan stared at her. What are you saying? I'm saying go marry Sophia. Build your empire. Live the life you were meant to live. Emma's voice steadied with terrible resolve. I survived losing you once. I'll survive it again. Emma, please. I mean it, Nathan. Go. She moved to the door, opening it. You came here for closure. Permission, maybe. Fine, you have it. I release you from whatever obligation you think you have to me. Nathan didn't move. I don't believe you. Then believe this. Emma met his eyes, and what he saw there was raw and devastating. I'm tired. I'm so tired of being the reason people sacrifice things. My father spent his last years feeling guilty that I gave you up for him. I've spent 12 years wondering if I ruined your life. I can't carry any more guilt, Nathan. I can't be the person who destroys your company and your employees' livelihoods. I can't. So you're choosing for both of us again. I'm choosing to let you go. Tears streamed down her face. Well, I still can. Nathan moved to the door, but instead of leaving, he closed it. Emma's eyes widened. What are you doing? What I should have done 12 years ago. Nathan's voice dropped to something fierce and final. Fighting. He kissed her. For a moment, Emma was rigid with shock. Then she melted into him, her hands fisting in his shirt, pulling him closer with a desperation that matched his own. 12 years of longing poured into that kiss. Grief and rage and love and loss. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Emma was crying again. This doesn't solve anything, she whispered. I know. Richard will still destroy you. I know. Your wedding is in 8 hours. I know. Nathan rested his forehead against hers. Emma, I've spent 12 years building a life that looks perfect on paper. Money, success, respect, all of it. And it's never been enough because the one thing I actually wanted was you. Nathan, his phone rang. He ignored it. It rang again, and again. Finally, Emma pulled away, nodding at his pocket. Answer it. Nathan checked the screen. Sophia, he answered. Nathan, where are you? Sophia's voice was tight. The venue called. They need you there by 3 for photos. It's already 11. Sophia, I need to tell you something. There was a pause. When Sophia spoke again, her voice had changed. Colder. You're with her, aren't you? The cleaning woman. Nathan looked at Emma. Yes. My father warned me you might do something stupid. Sophia's composure cracked slightly. Nathan, listen to me very carefully. If you're not at that venue by 3 o'clock, my father will activate his backup plan. What backup plan? The one where he calls in the favor he's owed by the SEC. The one where they investigate Brooks Financial for irregularities they'll conveniently discover in your books. The one where you don't just lose your company, Nathan. You go to prison. Nathan's blood turned to ice. There are no irregularities. There will be by tonight. Sophia's voice was almost sympathetic. My father doesn't make threats he can't keep. You know that. So here's what's going to happen. You're going to show up at 3. You're going to smile for photos. You're going to marry me at 6. And then we're going to have a very civilized, very strategic marriage where we both get what we want. And if I don't, then say goodbye to Emma now, because you'll be spending the next 10 to 15 years in a federal prison. The line went dead. Nathan stood in Emma's tiny apartment, phone in hand while his carefully constructed world collapsed. Emma was watching him. She'd heard enough. What did she say? She asked quietly. Nathan told her. Emma nodded slowly, like she'd expected this too. Like she'd always known it would end this way. Then you have to go, she said. Emma, Nathan, I can handle losing you to a marriage. I can't handle being the reason you go to prison. Her voice was steady now, resigned. Go, please, before I break completely and beg you to stay. Nathan looked at her. Really looked at her. The woman he'd loved for 12 years. The woman he'd love for the rest of his life. Standing in her small apartment, asking him to leave. I need you to know something, he said. Whatever happens next, whatever I choose, I love you. That's the only real thing in any of this. Emma's face crumpled. I love you too. I've always loved you. Nathan walked to the door, his hand on the knob. Then he stopped, turned back, and made a choice that would change everything. Emma Clare, will you run away with me? Emma stared at Nathan like he'd lost his mind. What? Run away with me. Nathan moved back toward her. Right now. We take your car, we drive, we disappear. Mexico, Canada, anywhere. Just us. Nathan, you can't be serious. That's insane, is it? His voice was almost manic with desperate hope. Richard wants to control my life? Fine, he can't control what he can't find. We leave everything behind. Start over. Emma's expression shifted from shock to something like grief. And then what? We live as fugitives? Running forever? That's not a life, Nathan. That's a prison of a different kind. At least we'd be together. Would we? Emma's voice hardened. Or would you wake up 6 months from now, a year from now, and resent me for everything you lost? Your company, your reputation, your freedom. I wouldn't. You don't know that. Emma walked to her window, looking out at the brick wall. Nathan, I've lived poor. I've lived small. I've made peace with it. But you haven't. You've spent 12 years building something that matters to you. I saw your face last night when you talked about Brooks Financial. That's your creation. Your legacy. I can't take that from you. You're not taking anything. I'm choosing. Emma turned back to face him. Then choose wisely, because this isn't just about us anymore. Nathan's phone rang again. This time it was Richard. Answer it, Emma said quietly. You need to hear what he has to say. Nathan put it on speaker. Nathan. Richard's voice was calm, controlled. I assume Sophia told you about the consequences of your little rebellion. You'd really send me to prison? Fabricate evidence? I'd do worse to protect what I've built. No hesitation. No remorse. But I'm not calling to threaten you. I'm calling to make you an offer. Nathan and Emma exchanged glances. I'm listening. Marry Sophia today. Go through with the wedding, the marriage, all of it. In exchange, I will leave Emma Clare alone. No more manipulation. No more interference. She can live her life in peace. That's not an offer. That's what should have happened 12 years ago. There's more. Richard's voice took on an almost paternal tone. I will also fund a trust in Emma's name. $5 million. Enough for her to go back to school, start a business, live comfortably for the rest of her life. All she has to do is accept that you're not part of her future. Emma's face went pale. You're trying to buy her off again, Nathan said, disgust thick in his voice. I'm offering her a life, a real one, without struggle or desperation. Richard paused. Nathan, you know I'm right. You care about this woman? Then give her the resources to thrive. All it costs is a marriage you were already planning to go through with. I don't want his money, Emma said loudly enough for Richard to hear. Of course you don't. That's what makes this tragic. Richard's voice was almost sympathetic. You're both so busy being noble that you can't see the practical solution in front of you. Nathan marries Sophia. You take the money and build a life. In a few years, after things settle, if you two still want to be together, well, Sophia is very understanding about the nature of strategic marriages. You're suggesting I marry your daughter and keep Emma as a mistress. Nathan's voice was ice. I'm suggesting you grow up and realize that love and marriage don't have to be the same thing. The Whitmore family has been doing this for generations. Strategic alliances, practical partnerships, personal fulfillment found elsewhere. It's how power works, Nathan. Emma sank into one of her mismatched chairs, her face a mask of devastation. You have 2 hours to decide, Richard said. After that, the SEC gets their anonymous tip, and this conversation becomes moot. The line went dead. Silence filled the apartment. Heavy and suffocating. Finally, Emma spoke. Take the deal. Nathan stared at her. What? Take the deal. Marry Sophia. Let him give me the money. Emma's voice was hollow. At least something good comes out of this disaster. Emma, I'm not going to Nathan. Listen to me. She stood, moving close enough to touch but not touching. I've been thinking about this all wrong. We've both been thinking about this wrong. This isn't about choosing between love and duty. It's about survival. I don't understand. If you go to prison, you lose everything, and I lose you anyway. If you run away with me, you lose everything and eventually resent me. If you refuse Richard's deal, he destroys us both. Emma's voice strengthened. But if you take the deal, you keep your company. Your employees keep their jobs, and I get the resources to actually build something of my own. Nobody loses everything, except we lose each other. Do we? Emma finally touched his face. Richard said in a few years after things settle. He's giving us a roadmap, Nathan. It's twisted and horrible, but it's survivable. Nathan covered her hand with his. You're really okay with this? Me marrying someone else? I'm not okay with any of this. Tears spilled down her cheeks. But I'm also not okay with you in prison or destroyed or running forever. At least this way, we both have a chance at a future. even if it's not the future we wanted. Nathan pulled her close, holding her like he could anchor them both against the storm. There has to be another way, he whispered into her hair. If there is, I can't see it. Emma's voice was muffled against his chest. And we're running out of time. They stood like that for a long moment, holding each other in her tiny apartment while the clock counted down to 3. Finally, Nathan pulled back. If I do this, if I marry Sophia and you take Richard's money, I need you to promise me something. What? Don't wait for me. Nathan's voice cracked. Don't put your life on hold hoping that someday we can be together. Take the money, build something amazing. Fall in love with someone who isn't trapped in an impossible situation. Live, Emma. Really live. You're asking me to move on. I'm asking you to be happy. Nathan kissed her forehead. Because if I'm doing this, if I'm marrying Sophia and playing Richard's game, the only way I survive it is knowing you're okay. That you're thriving. That something good came out of this nightmare. Emma was crying openly now. I don't know if I can do that. You have to try. Nathan stepped back, putting distance between them while he still could. Promise me, Emma. She looked at him for a long moment, then nodded. I promise. Nathan's phone showed 1:47. He had to leave now if he was going to make it to the venue by 3. I should go, he said. Yeah. Emma wrapped her arms around herself. You should. Nathan walked to the door, hand on the knob again. This was becoming a pattern. A terrible, recurring pattern. Nathan. Emma's voice stopped him. Yeah? When you're standing at that altar tonight, marrying her, I need you to know something. Emma's voice was steady despite the tears. What we had was real. What we feel right now is real. And no matter what happens next, that matters. It matters that we loved each other. It matters that we tried. Nathan nodded, not trusting his voice. And Nathan, thank you. For what? For coming here. For fighting even if we didn't win. Emma smiled through her tears. For being the man I always knew you were. Nathan wanted to go back to her. To hold her one more time. To say all the things building in his chest like a scream. Instead, he opened the door and walked out. Down the 3 flights of stairs. Past the neighbors who were now openly staring at the man in the expensive suit with tears on his face. Into his Mercedes that didn't belong on this street. He sat in the driver's seat for 5 minutes. Hands on the steering wheel, staring at Emma's building. Then he pulled out his phone and made a call. Richard, it's Nathan. I accept your offer. Wise choice, son. I'll have my lawyers draw up the trust paperwork for Emma. $5 million, as promised. There's one condition. Richard paused. I'm listening. You never contact Emma again. Ever. You don't check on her. You don't interfere with her life. You don't even speak her name. She gets the money and her freedom, completely. Agreed. Richard sounded satisfied. I'll see you at 3, Nathan. Don't be late. Nathan hung up. Started the engine. In the rearview mirror, he saw Emma appear in her 3rd-floor window. She pressed her palm against the glass. Nathan, put the car in drive, and left Emma Clare standing in that window. For the second time in his life, the Grand Crystal Ballroom glittered with preparations. When Nathan arrived at 258 White, roses and golden trim and the crystal chandeliers that had witnessed his breakdown the night before, Sophia was waiting, in the bridal suite, surrounded by attendants and champagne. She looked up when he entered, and for just a moment, something like sympathy crossed her face. You came, she said. I gave my word. Sophia dismissed her attendants with a wave. When they were alone, she approached Nathan, adjusting his tie with practiced efficiency. My father told me about the arrangement with Emma. The trust. Her voice was carefully neutral. That was decent of you. Decent would have been calling off this wedding. Decent doesn't survive in our world, Nathan. You're learning that. Sophia finished with his tie. For what it's worth, I don't enjoy this either. But we make the best of what we're given. Is that what we're doing? Making the best of it? What else is there? Sophia met his eyes. We're both playing roles in someone else's script. The least we can do is play them well. The photographer knocked on the door. It's time, Sophia said. Nathan followed her out to the ballroom, where friends and family and business associates were gathering. 200 people who had come to witness a wedding that was really a merger. A transaction. A lie, wrapped in white roses. The ceremony began at 6 o'clock exactly. Nathan stood at the altar, looking out at the crowd. He saw Richard in the front row, satisfaction radiating from him like heat. He saw colleagues from Brooks Financial, investors, board members, all the people whose livelihoods depended on this moment going smoothly. He saw the marble floor where Emma had been kneeling last night, scrubbing wine stains and crying. The music started. Sophia appeared at the end of the aisle in a dress that probably cost more than Emma's annual rent. And Nathan realized, with horrible clarity, that he'd made a terrible mistake. Not in coming here. Not in accepting Richard's deal, but in believing this was the only way forward. Sophia reached the altar. The officiant began speaking. "Dearly beloved, we are gathered here today." "Stop." Nathan's voice cut through the ceremony like a blade. Everyone froze. Sophia's eyes went wide. "Nathan," she whispered, "what are you doing?" Nathan looked at her. At Richard's face turning purple in the front row. At the 200 people holding their breath. "I'm sorry, Sophia. I can't do this." And then Nathan Brooks walked out of his own wedding. The gasps behind him sounded like a wave crashing. Nathan kept walking, down the aisle, past the shocked faces, past Richard, who looked like a man watching his empire crack, through the ballroom doors into the hallway where chandeliers cast dancing light on marble that had witnessed too many lies. His hands were shaking. His heart was hammering. But for the first time in 12 years, Nathan Brooks felt awake. He pulled out his phone. Emma answered on the first ring, her voice tight with confusion. "Nathan, shouldn't you be getting married right now?" I walked out, silence. Then barely a whisper, "What?" I was standing at that altar, looking at everyone, and I realized something. Nathan's voice cracked. "I've spent 12 years letting other people decide who I'm supposed to be. My father, Richard. The expectations of people who don't actually care about me. I was about to make the same mistake again. Nathan, the deal. Richard's threats, I know. Let him do his worst." Nathan laughed, and it sounded wild even to his own ears. "Emma, I'm 32 years old. If I'm going to lose everything, at least let it be for something real. Let it be for you." "This is insane." Emma's voice was thick with tears. "You're insane. Probably." "Where are you?" "Still at my apartment. I couldn't leave. I kept thinking about you standing at that altar and She broke off. "Nathan, what are you going to do?" "I'm coming to get you. Then we're going to figure this out together. Richard will destroy you. Then we'll build something new, something he can't touch." Nathan was already moving toward the exit. "Emma, I don't have a plan. I don't have answers. All I have is the absolute certainty that I can't live another day without you in it." Behind him, the ballroom doors burst open. Richard stood there, his face a mask of cold fury. "Nathan, we need to talk now. I'm done talking, Richard. You're done?" Richard's voice was dangerously quiet. "You just humiliated my daughter in front of Manhattan's elite. You destroyed a merger that took years to arrange. You think you can just walk away?" Nathan turned to face him. "That's exactly what I think." Richard's composure finally cracked. "I made you. Everything you are, everything you have, I built. And you're throwing it away for some woman who cleans floors. Her name is Emma, and she's worth more than everything you ever built." Touching. Richard's voice dripped with venom. "I'll give you 24 hours to reconsider. After that, I make my phone call to the SEC, and your life as you know it is over. Do it now." Nathan stepped closer, his voice steady. "I'm not spending one more second of my life afraid of you." Richard stared at him. For a moment, something flickered in his eyes. Not respect exactly, but perhaps recognition, like he was seeing Nathan clearly for the first time. "You're making the biggest mistake of your life," Richard said quietly. "Maybe, but it's my mistake to make." Nathan turned and walked away. This time no one stopped him. Outside, the evening air was cool on his face. His phone rang. "Emma, are you okay?" she asked immediately. "I'm better than okay." Nathan climbed into his Mercedes. "I'm free." 20 minutes later, Nathan knocked on Emma's door for the second time that day. When she opened it, She was wearing the same jeans and sweatshirt, but her face was different. Open, vulnerable, terrified. "You really did it," she whispered. "I really did." Emma launched herself into his arms. They stood in her doorway, holding each other like survivors of a shipwreck. "What happens now?" Emma asked against his chest. "I don't know." Nathan pulled back to look at her. "Richard will probably follow through on his threats. I'll lose the company, might face legal trouble. I'll definitely lose my reputation, my connections, everything I've built. And you're okay with that?" Nathan cupped her face in his hands. "Emma, I spent 12 years building a life that looked perfect but felt empty. I'm done with perfect. I want real. Real is messy. Good. I'm ready for messy." Emma laughed, tears streaming down her face. "You're crazy. This is crazy. Completely." Nathan kissed her, soft and certain. "But I'm not afraid anymore." The next 3 months were brutal. Richard made good on every threat. The SEC investigation was launched based on anonymous tips about financial irregularities at Brooks Financial. The evidence was circumstantial, mostly fabricated, but it was enough to trigger a probe. Nathan's board of directors voted to remove him as CEO pending the investigation. His investors pulled funding. One by one, the doors Richard had opened slammed shut. Nathan hired lawyers. Good ones. They cost money he was rapidly running out of. The legal bills mounted. His assets were frozen during the investigation. The penthouse, the car, the lifestyle he'd built, all of it crumbled. But Emma was there. She went back to work, taking extra shifts. Nathan moved into her tiny apartment in Brooklyn. They lived on her salary and his dwindling savings, eating cheap takeout and sleeping on a mattress that sagged in the middle. And somehow, impossibly, Nathan was happy. He woke up next to Emma every morning. They made coffee in her tiny kitchenette, their shoulders bumping in the small space. They talked about everything, their past, their fears, the uncertain future spreading before them. At night, tangled together in that sagging mattress, Nathan told Emma about his childhood, his father's death, his desperate drive to prove himself. Emma told him about her father's illness, the guilt that had haunted her, the fear that she'd destroyed Nathan's life for nothing. "You didn't destroy anything," Nathan whispered in the darkness. "You saved me. I just didn't know I needed saving." 4 months after the wedding that never happened, Nathan's lawyers called. "The SEC is dropping the investigation," his lead attorney said. The evidence fell apart under scrutiny. They found proof that documents had been tampered with. "Someone's going down for this, but it's not you." "Richard? Can't prove it. But the investigation into who fabricated the evidence is pointing in some interesting directions." Nathan hung up and immediately called Emma at work. "It's over. They're dropping the charges." Emma's sob of relief was loud enough that Nathan pulled the phone away from his ear. That night, they splurged on actual champagne, cheap champagne from the bodega down the street, but it tasted like victory. "What are you going to do now?" Emma asked, curled up next to him on her second-hand couch. "Go back to Brooks Financial?" Nathan shook his head. "The board made it clear I'm not welcome. And honestly, I don't want to go back. That whole world, that version of me, it feels like someone else's life." "So what do you want?" Nathan was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, "I want to build something different, something that actually matters." Over the next year, Nathan did exactly that. He couldn't get funding from traditional investors, not with Richard Whitmore's influence still poisoning those wells. But he found other sources, smaller investors who cared more about impact than connections. Emma took Richard's $5 million from the trust and insisted on investing it in Nathan's new venture. "He gave it to me," she said when Nathan protested. "I get to decide what to do with it. And I choose you. I choose us." Nathan Brooks Financial Consulting launched with a simple mission: help small businesses access the kind of financial expertise usually reserved for corporations. No mahogany offices or marble floors, just Nathan, Emma, and a small team working out of a converted warehouse in Brooklyn. It was hard. Harder than anything Nathan had done at his old firm. The hours were longer, the pay was worse, and success was never guaranteed. But Nathan went to sleep every night next to the woman he loved, working on something that mattered, and he'd never been happier. 2 years after the wedding that never happened, Nathan came home to find Emma sitting at their small table, holding something in her hands. "What's that?" he asked. Emma looked up, tears streaming down her face. "Happy tears. I've been accepted to the graduate program at Columbia. Literature. I can finally finish my degree." Nathan pulled her into his arms, holding her tight. "I'm so proud of you," he whispered. "We did it," Emma said against his shoulder. "We actually did it." They had dinner that night at the same cheap Chinese place they'd gone to on their first date 13 years ago. The tables were still sticky. The menu was still faded. The food tasted like memory and possibility. "Do you ever regret it?" Emma asked quietly. "Walking away from everything you'd built?" Nathan reached across the table, taking her hand. "Not for a single second." "Even though we're broke?" "We're not broke. We're just not rich." Nathan smiled. "There's a difference. Your old colleagues probably think you lost your mind. They're not wrong." Nathan squeezed her hand. "But Emma, I spent 12 years chasing a version of success that meant nothing. Now I have work I believe in, a life I chose, and you. That's not losing my mind. That's finding it." Emma's eyes filled with tears. "I love you. I love you too." Nathan paused. "Actually, about that." He pulled a small box from his pocket. Nothing fancy. A simple band with a small stone that had cost him 3 months of saving. "Emma Clare. I'm not a billionaire anymore. I can't offer you penthouses or private jets or any of the things I once thought mattered." Nathan opened the box. "But I can offer you me, all of me. The real version, not the one Richard Whitmore tried to create. Will you marry me?" Emma stared at the ring, then at Nathan. Then she started laughing through her tears. "Yes. Yes, of course, yes." Nathan slipped the ring on her finger. It was slightly too big. They'd have to get it resized. Perfect was overrated anyway. 3 months later, they got married at City Hall. No grand ballroom. No crystal chandeliers. No 200 guests. Just Emma and Nathan, their small circle of friends, and a future they were building together from scratch. As they walked out of City Hall as husband and wife, Emma stopped on the steps, looking up at the sky. "What are you thinking?" Nathan asked. Emma smiled. "I'm thinking about that night in the ballroom. When I was scrubbing floors and crying, convinced I'd destroyed both our lives. And I'm thinking maybe some things have to break before they can be built right." Emma turned to Nathan. "We lost 12 years, but maybe we needed to. Maybe we needed to become who we are now before we could really be together." Nathan pulled her close, kissing her there on the City Hall steps while people hurried past them. "You know what the funny thing is?" he said when they finally broke apart. "Richard thought he was orchestrating my life, building me into who he wanted me to be, but all he really did was delay the inevitable, because I was always going to end up here, with you, even if it meant losing everything, especially then." Nathan took Emma's hand. "Because losing everything taught me what actually matters." They walked down the steps together, into the crowded New York streets, into a future that was uncertain and beautiful and entirely their own. Nathan Brooks no longer had billions in assets. His name wasn't in the society pages. He'd never get back into the circles Richard Whitmore controlled. But he had Emma. He had work that mattered. He had a life he'd chosen. And for the first time in 12 years, when Nathan Brooks looked in the mirror, he recognized the man looking back. Not perfect. Not polished, but real. And finally, impossibly happy. The end.